Today, tea is the second most consumed beverage, trailing only water. But its global spread required violent, ocean-crossing logistics, ruthless corporate espionage, and international war. According to ancient legend, the divine farmer SÄNG discovered tea when a stray leaf drifted into his mouth, miraculously curing him after he had poisoned himself 72 times. The reality is grounded in archaeological evidence, which proves the plant was first cultivated in China. This timeline illustrates exactly how massive China's head start was. They were actively cultivating tea 6,000 years ago, a full 1,500 years before the pharaohs built the Great Pyramids of Giza. The original Chinese tea plant is identical to the one grown around the world today, but for most of its history, it was consumed entirely differently. It was eaten directly as a leafy vegetable or cooked down into grain porridge. Those millennia of early cultivation gave China absolute, undisputed control over a natural resource. As they perfected the plant, they secured a monopoly that would soon dictate the terms of trade with any nation that wanted a taste. The shift from food to drink occurred about 1,500 years ago. People discovered that applying a combination of heat and moisture drew complex flavors out of the green leaves. They began heating the tea, packing it into portable cakes, grinding it into a fine powder to mix with hot water. This matcha powder became a favorite of emperors and spawned a rich, exclusive culture in China. By the 9th century, a Japanese monk transported the first plant to Japan, where it became the center of highly specific, deeply ingrained cultural rituals. In the 14th century, the Ming dynasty shifted the standard away from pressed cakes and toward the loose-leaf tea we recognize today. They optimized the leaf as a premier export product, shipping it alongside their silk and porcelain. By refining the preparation, China transformed a local food source into a highly specialized export. They possessed a luxury good the outside world desperately wanted, and no one else knew how to produce it. Dutch traders brought the first large quantities of tea to Europe in the early 1600s, but demand exploded in 1661 when Queen Catherine of Braganza married King Charles II and introduced the beverage to the English aristocracy. This bar chart measures the economic weight of European demand in the 1700s. The cost of tea eclipsed coffee, selling for exactly 10 times the price. That intense demand sparked a fierce logistical race. Western trading companies literally designed the world's fastest sailboat, the clipper ship, to maximize profits by rushing the leaves back to Europe ahead of competitors. Looking at the global trade route here, Great Britain had a rapidly expanding problem. China supplied all the tea, but they refused to trade for goods. They demanded payment in a single specific currency, silver. Britain was hemorrhaging its silver reserves. This massive, unsustainable trade deficit left the British economy bleeding dry, forcing them to seek out a highly addictive alternative currency to balance the scales. To fix their deficit, the British pivoted to drug trafficking. They began smuggling immense quantities of opium into China to trade for tea, triggering a devastating nationwide public health crisis as the population became severely addicted. The tipping point arrived in 1839. A Chinese official ordered his men to intercept and destroy massive British shipments of opium to stop the epidemic and aggressively reject Britain's influence. Britain retaliated with military force. Fighting raged up and down the Chinese coast until 1842, ending with the defeat of the Qing dynasty. China was forced to cede the port of Hong Kong to the British and resume trading under entirely unfavorable terms. But military dominance and a new port were not enough to secure the market. As long as China held the physical trees, they held the leverage. Britain needed to steal the monopoly at its roots. The British East India Company decided to bypass Chinese trade entirely by learning to cultivate the crop on their own land. They commissioned botanist Robert Fortune to execute a covert espionage operation. Disguising himself, Fortune infiltrated China's heavily guarded mountainous tea regions on a perilous mission. He successfully smuggled living tea trees and experienced Chinese tea workers out of the country, transporting them directly into Darjeeling, India. That single act of corporate theft decentralized tea production forever. It broke China's 6,000-year monopoly, moving the centers of production and profit to British-controlled territories. With the monopoly broken, the market flooded. Tea quickly transitioned from an expensive, highly guarded luxury into a cheap, everyday commodity, easily available to the Western masses. As the plant spread across the globe, it adapted to fit local tastes. Entirely new cultural staples emerged, like the heavily sugared rize tea in Turkey. Preparation methods diverged wildly depending on the environment, leading to variations as distinct as the salty, calorie-dense Tibetan butter tea. The universal presence of tea today is the product of imperial ambition, corporate espionage, and the wars fought to secure its supply. The beverage found in every corner of the modern world was carried there by the forces of globalization.